So it doesn't have to be that deep, and faith is something that we should be allowed to talk about because it can help people at times.
Yeah, it is all a very personal journey, really, for all of you, isn't it? And you all seem to be getting along very well. We watched it last night. There's a really good mix of personalities with all different beliefs, and they come from different walks of life, and yet you're coming together getting something from the same
I know, I was
experience.
going to say that's what I think made the pilgrimage so special, was the journey that we went on together as pilgrims. I think doing it together as a whole made the whole experience even better, you know. I mean, I got to share a bed with Jeff Brazier. Not many people can say that, and that was one of the best moments there, and I shared a bathtub with Jay, so that the amount of experiences we had together just made the journey as a whole amazing.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, we're just going to interrupt you just for a moment. Interestingly, we're talking about pilgrimage as well and faith and belief. We're just being told there is breaking news in the last few minutes from the Vatican. We're going to head back to Richard and Ranveer at Good Morning Britain.
Thank you.
Christine, thank you so much. As you say, we do have some breaking news from Rome. The Vatican has just announced the death of Pope Francis. Senior Vatican official Cardinal Kevin Farrell said this in a statement just a few moments ago.
The statement reads, at 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the home of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his Church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with faithfulness, courage and universal love, especially for the poorest and most marginalised. With immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite, merciful love of God. One and Tribune.
And of course, we saw Pope Francis looking frail yesterday as he blessed thousands of Catholics who had gathered in St. Peter's Square. Easter Sunday, of course. What a moment that would have been for many of those who were there. We do now have a report from our senior news correspondent on the life of the Pope.
He was the unexpected Pope, elected to the highest office in the Catholic Church despite being a relative outsider. Many thought a younger man would be chosen, but in March of 2013, Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio emerged as the 266th Pope.
Grazie tante dell'accoglienza.
He was the first Pope to come from South America, the first Jesuit, and the first to choose the name Francis, after St. Francis of Assisi. And like his namesake, he chose to live frugally, refusing to stay in the papal palace, opting instead to live in a simple Vatican apartment, often cooking his own supper. My people are poor, he said, and I am one of them. This mixture of modesty and religious service became part of his public appeal. The son of Italian immigrants to Argentina, he joins the priesthood after studying to be a chemical technician. Eventually, he became Archbishop of Buenos Aires, but he continued to live a simple lifestyle, preferring to travel by public transport and prioritising the poor and the sick. When he became Pope, he plans to root out corruption and reform Vatican bureaucracy. He promised decisive action on the legacy of child sex abuse in the Church, though campaigners felt he didn't do nearly enough. He travelled widely, including to countries such as Iraq and Mongolia, which had never been visited by a pontiff before. In 2014, he managed to unite Palestinian Presidents Mahmoud Abbas and former Israeli President Shimon Peres, who both planted trees of peace in the Vatican gardens. He was no stranger to controversy. He compared European migrant centres to concentration camps, and he agreed to blessing same-sex couples, though he wouldn't support women becoming priests. He was a popular figure with world leaders and often meeting royalty, and he was even featured on the cover of Time magazine and Rolling Stone. He delighted two flight attendants on his plane when he agreed to marry them. And this iconic image perhaps sums up his personal touch, hugging a young disabled child who broke through the security cordon to meet him. The death of Pope Francis will leave millions of Catholics around the world without a leader, and they'll be mourning a man who is determined to use his 12 years of papal power to create a more inclusive church.